Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and today I want to introduce you to some of the authors I'm going to be spending a little bit of time with in 2024. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case, and welcome to this introduction to one of my projects for next year, which is called My Month With, and this will be a project where I read some more by some authors that I want to get to know a little bit better. So yeah, in the last year and a bit I've read an absolute ton of stuff by authors that were completely new to me. In fact, I've read work by just over 90 authors who I'd never read before, which inevitably means there were a few amongst those that really impressed me, and that I want to read more of. I want to get to know their style a little bit better, and figure out kind of how much I like their writing. As in, you know, do I generally like it, or was the book or story that I read a bit of an anomaly? I can usually tell within about three or four books, whether I like them or not. So that's what this project is going to aim to do. I'm going to be spending each month reading 2 books by an author I want to get to know better. For all of these, I've generally only read one novel, or perhaps one novel and a short story or two. And for a couple of these authors, I've only actually read one short story, but they were pretty awesome short stories and immediately made me want to explore those authors' work further. So without further ado, let's see who I'll be spending some time snuggling under a blanket and drinking tea with, potentially, over the next 12 months. We've got some horror, we've got some sci-fi, a bit of magic realism, and I guess what you'd call science fantasy. I won't be going into detail about these books, their plots, etc. Today I will do that in the TBRs as the months come up. Otherwise we'll be here forever. But for now I just want to whip through the schedule so you can see who I'll be spending some time with, and if there's any books on these on this schedule that you might want to buddy read with, then you can let me know that. So January then, the first pick. January will be My Month with Ira, which is of course Mr. Ira Levin. I read Rosemary's Baby back in April this year and absolutely loved it. And when I came up with the idea for this project, Ira Levin was the first name that came to mind. So I will be reading The Stepford Wives, of course, which is horror, sort of satirical horror, I think. And The Boys from Brazil, which I think is a bit more a thriller, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that will be My Month with Ira Levin. February, we're going into sci-fi, and my month will be with Andy Weir. I read Project Hail Mary in November 2022. It was the first sci-fi I think I'd picked up in years, and I had it as an audiobook and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's on my top 10 favourite books of all time. It immediately kind of went on there. It was just phenomenal, and I've already listened to it a couple of times since, just kind of when I've been ill and stuff. It's a great comfort book for me, but yeah, absolutely loved it. So I will be reading The Martian, of course, and also Artemis, which I have on audiobook. So March then, we are dipping into a bit of magic realism for My Month with Ange, which is of course Angela Carter. I read The Bloody Chamber for Horror Mayhem, and Nights at the Circus for my Adventures in Genre for Magic Realism, which was also in May. And Bloody Chamber I enjoyed a lot, but Nights at the Circus, just phenomenal book, absolutely phenomenal book. And again, Angela Carter was one of those that just shot to the top of my priority list when I was thinking of this, who to put in this project. So I will be listening to, because these are both on audiobook, Wise Children and The Magic Toy Shop for my month with Ange. Okay, April then, into some horror. And this is the anomaly in this list of authors, in that I've only read one book by this author, but it's one that I didn't like. And so April will be my month with Grady, Mr. Grady Hendrix, of course. I read Horror Store back in October of 2022, and I had it as an audiobook, and I think it was one of those that maybe it did it a disservice to listen to it on audiobook rather than reading it. But I didn't really get on with it. I didn't really get on with the style particularly, or the characters. I loved the concept, but for whatever reason, I just didn't really like it. But I think Grady Hendrix deserves another chance, because the premise of a lot of his books, I find they sound really fun, and I know a lot of people really love him. So I'm going to give him another go. So I will be reading How to Sell a Haunted House, and at the moment I've got My Best Friend's Exorcism down as the second one. But if you know Grady Hendrix's work and you want to make an alternative suggestion for that second one, I am I'm flexible on that. If people want to give me some guidance on another one of his to try, then please do. Okie dokes. May then, sticking with the horror, because it hopefully going to be Horror Mayhem again, so it'll tie in. And this will be my month with Eric. And that, of course, is Eric LaRocca. I read Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke for Horror Mayhem this year. And the title story in particular of that blew me away. In fact, not necessarily because it was the best writing. It was good, don't get me wrong. But it wasn't flawless. But there was something about that story that just got its claws in, and it has stuck with me. It's like this dark little worm in the back of my brain. And yeah, I still think about it. It still pops into my head. It had a real impact. So I definitely want to read some more of LaRocca's stuff and see if any of his other stuff has that same level of impact for me. So I'll be reading You've Lost a Lot of Blood and Everything the Darkness Eats. Everything the Darkness Eats is his most recent release, I think, and I think his first full-length novel. So we'll see how I get on with those. Okay, June then, and we're into a bit of sci-fi, and this will be my month with Becky, and that is Becky Chambers. I read A Psalm for the Wild Built, the first in the Monk and Robot series, in September this year. And spoiler for my top books of the year, it's on that list. Most definitely it's on that list. Such a beautiful book, such a warm book, such a human book, and just there's quite a lot of deep ideas in there, but they are addressed and kind of discussed, if you like, in such a gentle way. I just love it. I think it's an absolutely phenomenal book, and I can't wait to read the second one, which I may well read outside of this, because it's part of the same series. What I'm going to use this month for with Becky Chambers is to try some of her other stuff. And so I will be reading To Be Taught If Fortunate, which I think is a standalone novella. And then The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is the first in a series, the Wayfarers series, which I think is a series of 4 books. Certainly 4 at present. I don't know whether there's more to come. So yes, and I should expect that there'll probably be some LGBTQ themes in this, and with June being Pride Month, that should hopefully fit in nicely. Okay, July then. This is the one where I really don't know what to expect with this one. I think it could be sci-fi, fantasy, science fantasy. Really don't know. And this will be my month with Nora. Nora, of course, being N.K. Jemisin. I read Emergency Skin in September as part of Shorty September and as part of my big sci-fi reading month, which is a very short story published as part of the Amazon Original Collections, and just was, I think, was one of my favourite things I read that month. I just absolutely loved the voice, the authorial voice, the humour, the drama, the pace, just the character work in such a small space of time on the page. Yeah, just absolutely loved it. And so N.K. Jemisin immediately went on this list. So I will be reading The City We Became, which I think is the first in a series, a duo, I'm not entirely sure. And also, of course, The Fifth Season, which is the first in the Broken Earth trilogy. So as I say, I really don't know what to expect with this. But if the writing is anywhere close to what I experienced with that short story of Emergency Skin, I think I'll probably get on great. Okay, August then, a little bit more sci-fi. And this will be my month with Michael. And that is Mr. Michael Crichton. I read Jurassic Park at the back end of 2022. I loved the film as a kid and still love it now, but I'd never read the book. And I finally got around to reading it and thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, I may well read The Lost Worlds, again, outside of this project, before I get to August and the Michael Crichton month. But I kind of keep it separate because essentially it's the dinosaur stuff. I want to use this month to kind of see what else Michael Crichton has done. So I will be reading Micro, which my sister's read, and she tells me that it's bonkers but highly enjoyable. And Sphere, which I don't know much about. I like the sound of the premise. So we'll give those two a go and see what Michael Crichton has done outside of the wonderful dinosaur stuff. Okay, September then, sticking with the sci-fi, because I probably will end up doing another month of sci-fi in September. I really enjoyed that this year, so may well do that again next year. So we'll go for some sci-fi thriller, hopefully, with my month with Blake. And that, of course, is Blake Crouch. I read Dark Matter in September this year and was really impressed by that. Just the right balance for me of the sciencey and the entertaining thrillery stuff. Really solid character work, really quite impressive plotting. I imagine that book was a nightmare to plot in terms of avoiding plot holes. And yeah, as I say, the level of science stuff wasn't too much. It didn't melt my brain. It just kind of made me think just the right amount. So yeah, really impressed with that. So I will be reading for September with Blake Crouch, Upgrade as the first one, and then Recursion as the second one. Although I ought to say, again, this is one where I hear really good things about Wayward Pines, which I know is a series. But if anybody has it, again, any opinions on, if you know Blake Crouch's stuff well, and you think, really, I should probably try Wayward Pines versus Recursion, then, do drop that down in the comment below, and I will certainly consider it. Okay, October then, we're into spooky season, so we've got to go with the horror, and this is some absolute modern classic horror. This, of course, will be my month with Shirley. Shirley Jackson, of course. I read The Lottery quite a while ago, and was, again, really surprised at how much of a punch that short story has. And so, and as a horror fan, I kind of feel like I probably should have read Shirley Jackson by now, but I just haven't. So I will be reading The Haunting of Hill House, of course, and We Have Always Lived in the Castle. So yeah, I think it's about blimmin' time I read some Shirley Jackson. Okay, November then, back into the sci-fi, and this will be my month with Adrian. Mr. Adrian Tchaikovsky, of course. I read Walking to Aldebaran in September, again, my big sci-fi month this year, and loved the humour of this. I loved the very British humour of this, and just the imagination, and the amount, again, this is a novella, so it's quite short, but the amount of kind of big ideas, the amount of questions in there that kind of asked you to think about various different sort of philosophical ideas, I guess. Yeah, I really liked it. Again, it was the right balance of thinky and funny and thrilling and tense. And so, yeah, I do really want to check out more of Tchaikovsky's work. So I will, of course, be reading Children of Time, the first book in that series. And for the moment, I've got down The Doors of Eden as the second one, which I know is a standalone. But I might sub that out for his new one, which releases in June, I think, next year, which is called Service Model. So I'll make a decision nearer the time on that one. I've got a little while. It's not until November next year that I'm doing those. But yeah, so the second one's slightly up for debate, but it'll be one of those two. Okay, December then, and we're in for a bit of magic realism around the festive season. And this will be my month with Neil. Neil Gaiman, of course. I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane back in May, and it was magic. It was magical. Magic realism. It was magical. It was enchanting, and it was read by Neil Gaiman. I had it as an audiobook, and it was just his story time with Neil. It was just lovely. It was a really enjoyable, quite heartfelt story. So I will be reading or listening to. I'm definitely having these on audiobook because they're narrated by Neil Gaiman, both of these. I will be listening to The Graveyard Book, and also Neverwhere, which I like the premise of very much. So that is it then. Those are the 12 authors that I will be spending a bit more time with and getting to know a little bit better in 2024. So yes, as I mentioned before, if any of these books are also on your wish list and you fancy a buddy read, then please do get in touch. I would love to buddy read some stuff, like, you know, some stuff off this list or any of my other kind of reading lists, you know, with some of you folks. That would be fabulous. So yeah, you can either let me know in the comments, or you can drop me an email, whatever you like. But yeah, do get in touch if you fancy reading one of these together. So that's it from me for now, I think. Thank you very much for watching, folks. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving me a like and subscribing for more bookish ramblings coming very soon. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.